everybody. Welcome once again to another edition of Quick Trivia with Mike. It's that weekly quiz show right here on Channel 955 where we test your knowledge of historical facts. Some of them are a little bit more obscure, some of them are very contemporary. All of them, we hope, are a lot of fun. I hope you're enjoying the program. You know, we're coming up on our 1-year anniversary pretty quick. We'll try to do something a little bit special that day. I think this might be our 49th episode already, so we're moving right along. That 52nd episode is coming up really, really quick. I'm your host and the quiz master, Mike Brever. Again, we're seen here all weekend long, exclusively on Channel 955. You know, we always begin our show by going over the answers to the 3 questions that we posed for you last week. We then announce who the winner is for people sending in their trivia answers for the week. I then give you 3 new questions for the coming week. You call in with your answers. Maybe you will get your picture on 955 in the coming week. Let's get right at it, shall we? You know, last week I talked extensively about a PBS program. You know that before I came to East Castle Place, I worked for Milwaukee's affiliate of PBS. Channels 10 and 36, the license is held by MATC. One of PBS's most famous programs is Frontline, a Thursday night documentary series, investigative documentary series. Really award-winning, just a really classic representation of why PBS is so important, not just for entertainment purposes, but also for informational purposes. I loved being able to represent that show locally. I'll tell you, we gave you a little bit about the history of it. We talked about the types of awards that they've won, the types of documentaries that they do. But at the end, I told you that there was a fun fact about Frontline that I thought you would find interesting. There is a connection between Frontline, one of America's most prestigious documentary programs, and Dos Equis beer. And I asked you, what is the connection between Frontline and Dos Equis beer, that wonderful, wonderful Mexican brew? Well, the answer is Will Lyman. Will Lyman, born May 20th, 1948, is an American voiceover artist. You know, I've done some voiceover work myself, but Will Lyman is just absolutely amazing at it. He's a real talent. He has been doing the PBS Frontline series as their background voice, the voiceover, since the 2nd season, 1984. You know, previous to that, there actually was an on-camera host in season 1. She passed away. Frontline changed their format and they went to a voiceover. And Will Lyman got the job once again in 1984, and he has done it since that point in time. He also became the narrator of a series of commercials for the Mexican beer Dos Equis. For those of you that, you know, maybe don't remember seeing a commercial about Dos Equis, it might ring a bell if I tell you the format. The most interesting man in the world series of commercials of Dos Equis beer. Will Lyman was, of course, the spokesperson, the voiceover for all of those commercials. Now, he was not the actor. The actor was Jonathan Goldsmith. But again, Will Lyman was the voiceover. So there you have it, the connection between PBS Frontline and Dos Equis beer is the voice that you hear in the background telling you all about it. And that is Will Lyman. So that was the answer to question number 1. Question number 2. We talked a little bit about the United States Senate, created in the United States Constitution, first inaugurated in 1789. We gave you many of the facts and figures about the United States Senate. We talked about the fact that since 1789, there have been 1,314 individuals who served as senators. There have been an additional 680 who served both as congressmen and subsequently as senators. That brings the total of individuals who have served as senators to 1,994. Now you know that February is Black History Month. And I gave you the story about the United States Senate as a tie-in to Black History Month. 1,994 individuals have served as senators since 1789. I asked you how many have been African Americans. The answer? 11. 11 of the 1,994 individuals who have served in the United States Senate were African Americans. It began with Hiram Revels, born in 1827, attended Knox College in Illinois, began serving as a senator in 1870, was the first African American senator. Next was Blanche K. Bruce, born in 1841 to slavery, elected to the United States Senate, representing Mississippi in 1874. He served from 1875 to 1881. Carol Moseley Braun, served in the United States Senate beginning in 1993. Edward Brooke served in the United States Senate, served 2 full terms, 1967 to 1979. Barack Hussein Obama, born August 4th, 1961, graduated Harvard Law School in 1991, elected to the United States Senate representing the state of Illinois in 2004, took the oath of office on January 3rd, 2005. Roland W. Burris, finished law school in 1963, first served in the Senate in 2008. He was an appointment, served until November 29th, 2010. William Moe Cohen served from 1994 until 2013. Cory Booker, still in fact a United States Senator, re-elected in November of 2020. And Kamala Harris, when you see the spelling of her name, Kamala, a lot of people want to pronounce it Kamala or something like that. Think of the the accent in phonetics, comma. It's Kamala Harris. Now, the Vice President of the United States, and finally just elected on January 5th, 2021, Raphael G. Warnock. He actually won his term by 2 percentage points. He also has a master's degree and a PhD in divinity from Union Theological Seminary. So there you have it. We have 11 individuals, African American, who have served in the United States Senate, that august body of 1,994 individuals. As the month goes on, we're going to have more questions about Black History Month. So, sharpen up some of your history on those types of things, because more are coming. In fact, we're going to have another one today. Our third question from last week. We talked a little bit about Groundhog Day. Groundhog Day was last week. There's a very, very famous movie starring Bill Murray. I'm just going to turn that off. Very, very famous movie starring Bill Murray called Groundhog Day. It's about a weather man who gets caught in a time loop. It goes on, lots of different things happen to him. I asked you if you look at all the various different things that happen to Phil Connors, who is the individual that Bill Murray plays. I asked you, how long is he stuck in that time loop? You remember he became a master ice sculptor. He became a very, very proficient pianist. He actually committed suicide about 7 or 8 times on Groundhog Day, stuck in that time loop. Eventually he falls in love. And that's what brings him out of the time loop, and he goes on with his life. Actually a very, very heartwarming story. I highly recommend it if you ever get a chance to see it. If you've not seen it yet, I do encourage you. Bill Murray does just an absolutely wonderful job on it. I also think Andy McDowell, the love interest, really plays a good part. And of course, Chris Elliott. If you like Chris Elliott, you'll love him in this movie. He really does a great job. I asked you, how long was Bill Murray stuck in the time loop in Groundhog Day for him to become a master ice sculptor and to learn to become a master pianist and everything else he learned in all of this time, and to turn his life around and learn how to love and allow himself to be loved? How long was he in that time loop? Initially, Harold Ramis, who was the producer of the movie, when it first came out, he suggested that he thought that probably the time loop went on for 11 to 12 years. However, the website What Culture actually analyzed the movie in extensive detail and estimated how long all of these different things would take. The answer, based on all the activities that occurred, is that Bill Murray was stuck in the time loop as Phil Connors for 12,395 days. And ironically, Harold Ramis, the producer of the movie, upon hearing that, analyzed it himself and said, yeah, you're probably right. When you take 12,395 divided by 365, and of course 366 on the every 4th year leap year, comes to 34 years. Now, I had asked you, was it going to be 30, going to be 34, going to be 38? So some of you could have guessed, but the actual answer was 34 years. So there you have it. Those are the 3 questions and the 3 answers from last week. Now, as you know, we always have a tiebreaker as well. I hope you paid attention to the bumper music at the beginning of today's show, because if 2 or more of you get the same number of answers correct, identifying that bumper music is the tiebreaker. If you didn't hear it at the beginning of the show, listen again at the end. It's the same song that we're going to be playing. So I encourage you to put on your thinking caps and listen to that music. This past week, the bumper music was Southern Man by Neil Young. The song is actually about racism in the American South, with references to slavery and I always have trouble with this, the Ku Klux Klan. Neil Young claimed the song was more about the civil rights movement than about the South in particular, but of course many Southern men and women didn't appreciate the generalization. In Neil Young's 2012 biography called Waging Heavy Peace, Young actually apologized for the song, writing, "I don't like my own words when I listen to it. They are accusatory and they are condescending, not fully thought out, and too easy to misconstrue." However, having said that, Southern Man is a wonderful song, and it is classic Neil Young, whom I happen to like very much as a songwriter and performer. So there you have it. That was the bumper music from last week. Who is our winner, or are our winners from last week? Well, we had 2 people get the bumper music correct. However, those two people did not get all three answers correct. The winner, who got all three answers correct, 11 senators, Will Lyman, 34 years, and also identified the bumper music as Southern Man, Sandra Meyer. Sandra Meyer, welcome back to the winner circle. I know I kind of cheated your recognition a couple times in the past couple months. This time you share the honor all by yourself. Congratulations to our winner this week, Sandra Meyer. You're going to see her picture on channel 955 all week long. So there you have it, our winner for this week, Sandra Meyer. That's the first half of our show. We're going to take a quick intermission. You can grab yourself a cup of coffee, maybe get a donut, sit back and relax. I'm going to give you the 3 new questions for the coming week as soon as we come back. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Dave! Doc Hallen's been killed.
Doc Hallen, what happened?
It's over at his place. You gotta come now.
Oh, wait a minute, Steve. Tell us what happened.
Well, I'm trying to tell you. Now, this thing had killed the doc.
Well, what was it?
Stop with it, kid. Well, it's kind of like a mass that keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Every one of you watching this screen, look out. Because soon, very soon, the most horrifying monster menace ever conceived will be oozing into this theater. Two teenagers see it first, like a falling star from outer space.
Boy, that was close. Hey, come on. I want to see if I can find it.
An old man finds it, touches it, and this is the shocking result. From then on, there's no stopping the blob as it spreads from town to town. It's indestructible. It's indescribable. Nothing can stop it.
This town is in danger.
How can it be stopped? Mob hysteria sweeps one city. Before long, the nation, and then the world could fall before the blood-curdling threat of the Blob.
Starring Steve McQueen and a cast of exciting young people.
Everybody, to the second half of Quick Trivia with Mike. You know, this week, the month of February, is Black History Month, and the last couple shows I've been featuring questions that really highlight some of the black ancestry and the major accomplishments of black individuals in the United States. Our first question today is going to go off a little bit on that as well, but first I have to lay the background. We're going to talk about the President of the United States. Our current President, as you know, is the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden, sworn in on January 20th, 2021. President of the United States, sometimes called POTUS, P-O-T-U-S, President of the United States, is the head of state and head of the government. The President directs the executive branch of the federal government and is the Commander-in-Chief of the United States Armed Forces. In contemporary times, the President is also looked upon as one of the most powerful political figures in the world, and is actually the leader of the only remaining global superpower. As the leader of the nation with the largest economy by nominal gross domestic product, The president possesses significant domestic and international hard and soft power. Article 2 of the Constitution establishes the executive branch of the federal government and vests the executive branch in the hands of the president. The president gets the ability to appoint federal executive, diplomatic, regulatory, and judicial officers. The modern president also has primary responsibility for conducting U.S. foreign policy. The role includes responsibility for directing the world's most expensive military and the second largest nuclear arsenal. Article 1, Section 7 of the Constitution gives the president the power to sign or veto federal legislation. In recent decades, presidents have also made increasing use of executive orders, agency regulations, and judicial appointments to shape domestic policy. The president is elected indirectly. The president is elected indirectly through the Electoral College to a 4-year term. Of course, the Electoral College is selected by the popular vote in each state. Again, the president serves a 4-year term. Under the 22nd Amendment, ratified in 1951, no person who has been elected to 2 presidential terms may be elected to a 3rd. Once again, in all, 45 individuals have served 46 presidencies, spanning 58 full 4-year terms. Interesting how there are 45 individuals, 46 presidencies. We actually carried that in a past show. Grover Cleveland, served 2 terms that were interrupted by a different presidential administration. So he counts as two presidencies, but only as one president. Once again, Joe Biden is the 46th and current president. He assumed office on January 20th, 2021. You also know, based on our conversation about our question last week about senators and how many senators have been African American, you know that Kamala Harris is our current vice president. Kamala Harris is also notable for the fact that last year, leading up to the presidential election, she served as a candidate for president. She backed out of the race and ultimately supported the Democratic Party candidate, Joseph Biden. Joseph Biden selected her as his running mate. She's now Vice President of the United States. My question to you in honor of Black History Month: how many black women have run for president in the history of the United States? How many black women have run for president in the history of the United States? There's at least one because of Kamala Harris. I'm going to give you a hint. It's more than just one. So that is question number 1. How many women, yes, how many black women have served as candidates to President of the United States? Question number 1. Question number 2, we're going to go off a little bit on history. We're going to look at Prohibition in the United States. Prohibition in the United States was a nationwide constitutional ban on the production, importation, transportation, and sale of alcoholic beverages from 1920 to 1933. Actually, the impetus for Prohibition went back to the 19th century. There were many communities that were really, for a multitude of reasons, some, a hard temperance movement, some for religious purposes, were really starting to lean towards Prohibition in the late 19th century. Many communities actually adopted what later became known as dry laws, dry communities. Actually, when I was younger, a friend of mine and I went down and spent some time in Mississippi. There were still dry counties in Mississippi when I was a young man. Maybe they're still there. I'm really not sure. The Women's Christian Temperance Union actually played a great role in rising this initiative in the 19th century to national prominence. After 1900, it was coordinated by the Saloon League. Opposition from the beer industry mobilized wet supporters from the wealthy Catholic and German Lutheran communities. Of course, this started to die down with World War I. Things that were German in origin, beer being one of them, and the lobbying that went in to keep beer legal, were really starting to get frowned on because of the hated Hun and the war to end all wars. The Great War, World War I. So things like that started to die out. The 18th Amendment to the United States Constitution in 1920 was eventually passed with a 68% supermajority in the House of Representatives and a 76% support in the Senate, as well as ratification of 46 out of 48 states, enabling legislation known as the Volstead Act set down the rules for enforcing the federal ban and defined the types of alcoholic beverages that were prohibited. That's right, not all alcohol was prohibited. For example, religious wine, sacramental wine in religious ceremonies was not prohibited. Also, private ownership and consumption of alcohol were not made illegal under federal law, but local laws may have been stricter and banned them. Of course, you know, with the creation of Prohibition, anytime you ban something, there's now going to be a counterculture, an underworld, if you will, that springs up and comes to prominence as they find ways around that. In this particular case, you know, it led to organized crime. It led to people brewing their own liquor illicitly. It led to people creating liquor and selling it. It also led to the illegal importation of alcohol across the Canadian border, shipping and things like that. Wonderful names in history. There's a they bring a sense of nostalgia. You hear names like Elliot Ness and the Untouchables, how they went about trying to fight, you know, the bootlickers and organized crime at that time. People like Al Capone and Frank Nitti, people who got fabulously wealthy on the illicit trade of alcohol during Prohibition. However, there was a lot of good that came from Prohibition. It reduced the amount of liquor consumed. It reduced cirrhosis of the liver deaths. It reduced admissions to state mental hospitals for alcoholic psychosis. It reduced arrests for public drunkenness, and it reduced the rates of absenteeism, so employers loved it as well. However, as time went on, wet opposition talked of personal liberty, new taxes from legal beer and liquor, and the scourge of organized crime. On March 22nd, 1933, Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed into law the Cullen-Harrison Act, legalizing beer with an alcohol content of 3.2% by weight. March 22nd, 1933, for all practical purposes, now that beer is legal, Prohibition comes to an end. My question to you, you know, a lot of times I throw a Milwaukee trivia question in. March 22nd, 1933, Roosevelt signs the Cullen-Harrison Act, in essence ending Prohibition. Why did Milwaukee wait to celebrate the end of Prohibition until April 17th, 1933? Why did Milwaukee wait till April 17th, 1933 to celebrate the end of Prohibition? That literally was 26 days later. Why did Milwaukee wait 26 days to celebrate the end of Prohibition? That is question number 2. Moving on. Question number 3, we're going to stay on the topic of the making of liquor. Once again, during Prohibition, the making of liquor and the sale of it was a very, very prominent underground industry. Led to organized crime, etc. In the early 1920s, the Jenner Brothers gang provided hundreds of needy people in the Little Italy section of Chicago with 1-gallon copper alky cookers or stills to make small batches of homemade liquor in their kitchens. The Jennas furnished the corn, sugar, and yeast. When the Jennas henchmen made the rounds to these family enterprises, they paid a nice return of $15. Roughly, they made a nice return of $15. Roughly $188 in 2016 money. So as you see, the Jennas made a very tidy profit by having these kitchen distilleries, if you will, make this illegal liquor. The liquor costs them approximately 50 to 75 cents per gallon to make. They're selling it for $15 a gallon. So that's pretty nice. And they paid Italian Americans $15 per day to run the alky cookers. These family moonshiners were among countless small and big-time illegal alcohol producers during Prohibition. Some of these mom and pops bottled their own liquor at home, which was very common. In fact, they used a small still to ferment a mash from corn, sugar, fruit, beets, even potato peels to produce 200 proof alcohol. Then mix it with glycerin and a key ingredient needed to water it down. A key ingredient was a touch of juniper oil, which was used for flavoring. This was a highly potent rank gin. They needed to water it down by half. So what they would do was put it under a faucet and literally just add water to it. The problem is it was already bottled. These bottles were too tall for kitchen sinks. So people would add the water in the bathtub because there was greater distance between the bathtub and the spout of the faucet. That's how it came to be known as bathtub gin. However, of course, few people could tolerate the horrible taste of this bathtub gin. So people would mix it down with bitters or soda pop, juices, fruit garnishes, just to hide the flavor of the poorly made alcohol. But people would do anything for a little bit of alcohol in those days, and that's what they did. In large cities and rural areas, from basements and attics to farms and remote hills and forests across America, moonshiners and bootleggers made it virtually impossible for Prohibition agents to enforce the Volstead Act. So liquor was a booming industry, and America was not collecting tax on any of it. Commercial stills in New York could put out 50 to 100 gallons a day at a cost of 50 cents a gallon and sell each one for between $3 to $12. By 1930, the U.S. government estimated that smuggling foreign-made liquor into the country was a $3 billion industry. In 2016 dollars, that's roughly $41 billion. Ironically, although you could not make liquor legally, you could buy all the ingredients legally in grocery stores and hardware stores. You could buy the stills, the bottles, the malt syrup, the corn sugar, the corn syrup, the hops, yeast, and bottle cappers. It was virtually impossible to stop the making of liquor when you could buy everything you needed right at the local grocery store, and there was nothing illegal about that. Grocery stores like Kroger and A&P actually sold the ingredient malt syrup by the can. So that's a little bit about the making of homemade liquor. I can tell you, however, that there was a wood alcohol in the liquor that made it extremely, extremely dangerous. There were people who went blind from it. There were people that died from it. The rot gut liquor used in mixed drinks poisoned thousands of speakeasy customers. As many as 50,000 drinkers died from tainted alcohol during the Prohibition. But all of that was because it was illegal. There was no regulation of it. People did whatever they could to make it, and there you have it. Ironically, the making of homemade liquor, continues. Even to this day, people do it as a hobby. And some of these really bizarre recipes continue to this day. My question to you, based on these bizarre recipes to make liquor that people are craving. In 1969, a country put 270 winemakers on trial for allegedly producing wine from ox blood, banana skins, and ammonia. I'm going to read that to you again because I had trouble believing it when I first read it. In 1969, a country put 270 winemakers on trial for allegedly producing wine from ox blood, banana skins, and ammonia. I'll tell you, that's going to take a lot of white soda to get me to think that that tastes good. My question to you, what country is it that cracked down on 270 winemakers who were using this bizarre recipe? There you have it. Those are our 3 questions for this week. You know that the way to win is to get your answers to me by noon on Monday. You can get them to me by emailing me at mbrever@eastcastleplace.com. You can call me at 963-8425. I know I gave you that information way too fast. Call the front desk. Lila or Famata, one of them will give you the information. You can send it to me that way. You can also write your answers down. Slide them under my office door on the 2nd floor up here. Or put them in my mailbox behind the reception desk. Any way you get the answers to me is going to work, and I'll take it. Maybe you will get your picture on Channel 955 next week, just like Sandra Meyer this week. That's our show for this week. I'd like to thank the management of ECTV, our president Tyler Gudix, our executive producer Laura Wengler, my producer and cameraman Scott McFerrin, and of course my artistic producer Cooper Ledvina. Again, as always, if you like anything about the show, it's probably because of Scott and Cooper. They do all the behind-the-scenes work that makes this possible. I'd also like to thank you for inviting me into your home for this hour. I hope you had a good time. I had a really good time with it. I'm your host and the quiz master, Mike Brever. Until next week, I ask you to please stay safe and stay smart. Now that the vaccinations are beginning, it won't be long, and we will all be together once again to enjoy that wonderful East Castle Place hospitality. So long, everybody.